Chapter 12 of History of Japan in Words of One Syllable. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. History of Japan in Words of One Syllable by Helen Ainslie Smith. Chapter 12. Nitta and Kusunoki. In all the long fight of the War of the Chrysanthemums, there were two men whose brave deeds make them stand out from all the rest who took part in the strife. These were Nitta Yoshisada and Kusunoki Masahige. They now fought for their king, as if they did not know how he had let the base Ashikaga take what was their due, and had lent his ear to that man's tales of Nitta's bad faith. None of this did they let stand in their minds when once more the Mikado had need of their strong arms and their great minds on the field of war. Once Nitta sent word to Ashikaga, "Come out and meet me and fight with me. It is we who lead the two great bands. Come forth and we will fight hand to hand. The side of him who lives shall win the war, and so we may spare the bloodshed of our men." The shogun's men got him to say that he would not do this, but ere long they found a chance to cut down the brave chief of their foes without any risk to their own. He had set out with some 2 or 3 score of men to arm a fort one day, but he had not gone far when near 3,000 of the foes fell on them in a small path through some rice fields near Fukui. He had no shield, and their darts fell round him like rain. His men said, "Fly," but he would not leave them, and put the whip to his horse to get near to his foes, so as to fight them with the sword. But one arrow struck the poor beast while he was at full speed, and its mate gave a death blow to the chief as soon as he rose. It struck him full in the forehead, and gave him scant time to draw his sword and cut off his head, so that his foes could not tell his corpse from those of the rest of his band. And the rest went too, by the hands of the false ranks or their own. For it was more grand and good in a Japanese of those days to die with his chief than to live on when he was gone. Nitta's corpse was found, and his head was set up at Kyoto for all to see, but his grave was made near the spot where he fell, and to this day it is a spot that the Japanese love, and they keep fresh flowers on it all the time. Kusunoki died not in the field, but by his own hand. His plans were set at naught, and he lost his fights in the field, so that he felt that there was but one thing for him to do. He must die and leave his name pure. This seems strange to us, but to the Japanese 500 years ago, it was the part of a great man. It was said that of all the men in Japanese history, Kusunoki stands first, for the pure love he bore his land, for his strong, brave heart to risk his life for her sake, and for the way he would give up any wish of his own to serve his king. The boys learn his life and think of him as their best type of a true Japanese knight, and look on him as the greatest man their land has had, as we look on George Washington. They could tell you how he was taught in the lore of China by the priests, how strong he was of limb, too, for when he was 7 years old he could throw a lad twice his age in a wrestling match. While he was taught in books, he was taught in the arts of war as well, and was so apt in this last that he cut off the head of a foe when he was but 12 years old. He was taught the forms of drill that the Chinese use when he was 15, and made a vow to himself that the aim in life should be to throw down the rule at Kamakura and give to the Mikado his rights, this sway that had so long been kept out of the hands of the throne. So he took up arms for Godaigo, and though the Hojo tried hard to get hold of him, His side won at last with the aid of Nitta and Ashikaga. Then came those years when he was so ill-used, and Ashikaga took the place he ought to have had, but which could not turn his heart from his king any more than it did Nitta's. Thrice they drove the troops of the false Ashikaga out of Kyoto, and when he fled to the west, it was Kusunoki who said, "Go on, catch him, and break up the strife he is at the head of." But the Mikado did not see fit to make use of his plans, and so it went on, as we know, from bad to worse, till, in spite of all these two great chiefs and their brave bands could do, their cause was lost. When Kusunoki made up his mind to die, he said goodbye to his wife and his babes, and went to a farmhouse near the small town of Sakurai, where he gave the sword, which was a gift from the Mikado, to his son, and bade him think of his sire, avenge his death, and bear arms as a good brave man should. With that he took his life, and near a score of his band, men of his own race, died with him. End of chapter 12.